before a bow is put to the strings of one of William Stapp's handmade violins and played in a symphony, it has undergone months of his tireless, exacting attention. Local luthiers such as Stapp toil away in basement workshops with shelves of wood that have been seasoning for years in their possession. They have bandsaws, routers, humidity meters, and an assortment of handheld tools that adorn the walls. Stapp is in the middle of building a piece that represents the first violin of his fourth custom design.
We're talking about, millimeters of change in different dimensions, but even that can affect things in a way that are significant. So you're taking this down to where 1/10 of a millimeter matters. So you have to be careful not to go too far.
Having studied violin design at Indiana University, Stapp also studied two famous Stradivarius violins in person at the Library of Congress, of which he has posters of each inscribed with his own handwritten notes and measurements.
The best of them represent the best examples we have of how good a violin can sound. And so they represent, not all of them, some Strads are just average sounding, but there's a handful that are really, really good. And from those we kind of learn what is the ceiling, what's the most sound you can get out of a piece of wood that has air inside it.
But Stapp isn't looking to replicate these instruments as others have. Instead, he designs his instruments to 1/10 of a millimeter, guarding the exact design and measurements. He's looking for his own style to come through in the sound.
If I tap this and I hold it in a certain place, you hear a pitch. And if I hold it at a different place, I hear a different pitch. So the violin's moving in a vast array of complex ways which contribute to the end result in the sound.
Stapp says he begins building instruments long before he has found a buyer, knowing that crafting the violin on spec, he'll be able to sell it for about $10,000, a modest price for a professional level violin, he notes.
So this one is my fourth design that I've done, and we'll find out in a couple months if it actually did what I thought it would do. So I track each one very carefully, with a whole notebook of measurements and observations, so that if I do something with that instrument that yields a good result, then I can go back and track down, what caused it to do one thing or another.
Working on violins is also how fellow luthier Mark Joy found his way into the craft. When he wanted to study to become a luthier, there were no schools in the country where he could study guitar making, so after dropping out of college in 1970, he apprenticed with Dr. Melvin Schneider in Iowa.
And I went over to his house every day for 7 or 8 hours and sat with him and worked on violins of a very wide range of worth and value, anywhere from $5 or $6 pawn shop pieces of junk, which is what he started me working on, to at the time $80,000, $100,000 violins, which today a few of them would be approaching $1 million.
Joy later found a job at a large music center in Washington repairing instruments before switching careers to become a computer engineer, putting his lutherie on the back burner. Now in retirement, Joy has more time to dedicate to building new instruments and repairing others' guitars.
The whole idea in building a guitar in particular, a modern steel string guitar has, if you use light gauge strings, between about 165 and 180 pounds of pressure pulling up on the top. And the whole goal for any maker of American steel string guitars is to build an instrument strong enough, yet light enough, that it almost explodes under the pressure of the strings, yet withstands them.
One of the four current guitars he's working on is for his son, a guitar made with rare Brazilian rosewood that he's been holding on to for 40 years. There's a certain depth to the way Joy discusses the history and sound properties of the wood that goes into his instruments.
It's quilted sapele, which is an African wood, not endangered as yet, but fast becoming endangered, particularly the larger trees that produce this stuff. And it's beautiful, beautiful stuff, particularly when it's this golden color.
After dedicating many months to building an instrument by hand, one might ask what the ultimate compliment for a luthier is.
That they play my instrument. And they play it well. and they go reach for my instrument above other instruments of high quality. That's the ultimate compliment. Well, my goals as a luthier are to create what I feel in my heart is a superlative instrument. A person can create moving music on it. A person can do the best of what music can do with my instrument. That would be my ultimate goal. Whether that will happen much in my lifetime or even known to me, I don't know. But I do know what it takes, what an instrument like that sounds like. And when I built that, I'll be a very happy man. Hopefully I'll be able to do that a few times. I've come very close, very close.
Roberto Rivera's path to Lutherie was slightly different than that of Stapp and Joy. Now living in Walkersville, he was introduced to Lutherie by his father-in-law in Puerto Rico. After learning the basics from his father-in-law, Rivera apprenticed for 2 years in New Jersey with renowned cuatro maker Yomi Matos. The cuatro, which is smaller than an American steel string guitar, is the traditional and widely popular stringed instrument of his native Puerto Rico. Like Stapp and Joy, he crafts his instruments by hand in his basement workshop, churning out about one per year.
You know, one of the things that people do say about my instruments is that they do stay nice and straight. They're not affected by humidity because the wood that I use has been with me at least 10 years.
One reason Rivera attributes to the quality of his instruments is the use of rosewood, even though it's not native to Puerto Rico.
The sound from them, it's pretty amazing. To me, it has become my favorite wood to use.
And that wood is of such quality, and he's been holding on to it for so long, he won't even let the scraps fall to waste. He recently began carving custom fountain pens from the leftover bits of wood for family and friends.
Many people in Puerto Rico would say, you know, the Puerto Rican cuatro is like the flag, right? It has a huge meaning to the people of any country. I'm a scientist, that's what I do. You know, that's my living. And I work for a biotech company here in Maryland. And as I have time, is when I come down to the shop and try to work a little bit on these instruments. I'm more of an artist. So it's not like I'm on it. You know, sometimes I'll come down and all I'll do is just look at it and not really do any work on it. To me, it actually feels like probably one of the biggest reasons that I do this is just to feel close to Puerto Rico, you know.